But let's now focus our attention, since we have concluded the quarterfinals here at Worlds 2020. Let's now give you our top 5 players of the quarterfinals. So we're looking at all 4 quarterfinal series, and Tyler and I have put together a top 5 of players at any position. These are just top 5 players. We didn't have a specific criteria. We can explain that if we want along the way, but we're going to go from 5 to 1 and we'll alternate, Tyler. Yeah. So you'll go first, then I go. So let's start at number 5. Who do you have at your number 5 in your top 5 list?
My number 5, I have 369, the man who rolls only 9s this tournament for Top Esports. His sign play changed the course of yesterday's series. If 369 doesn't play at the level he did yesterday, Fnatic wins that series 3-0 or 3-1. His sign totally and completely changed the course of that reverse sweep that Top Esports pulled off. Top Esports is a team, and I said it on Twitter, I've said it on social media quite often, Knight and Jackie Love might be the greatest 1-2 punch in League of Legends history, and then you bring 369 to the picture, and you might have the best 1-2-3 punch in Worlds history. And he's only adding to his legacy as well, where that big 2 of Knight and Jackie Love is now becoming that big 3 of Knight, Jackie Love, and 369, because he has been one of the best performing players of Tops throughout the entire event. So 369 is number 5 for me, Arda. Who's your 5?
I got Karsa, same team. I like this is actually my only representative from TES, and that's probably because in the dramatic way in which they won. He had the highest kill participation in all of the quarterfinal matchups at 84.5%. He won player of the series after the reverse sweep. He was lights out on Lee Sin in games 3 and 5. I really felt like he was an influential figure, much like 369, in TES's reversal of fortunes there. And of course, this is a jungle-focused meta, and he performed greatly, especially in the last 3 games on his on Lee Sin in 2 of those games. And it just looked like there was no answer to that. So that's why I have him at number 5.
Definitely.
Let's move on to number 4. Who do you got there?
Number 4, I got my boy Mickey X from Slovenia out here. G2's support starter. Number 4. Again, I said this during my recap of G2 versus Gen G. In a chaotic, messy, free-flowing expression of art, G2 are artists. I've said this comparison before. They're the artists of League of Legends, where they paint a picture every time they're on the Rift. And for Jankos, for Caps, for Perks, for Wonder, they're just abstract artists. They're throwing paint around the entire Rift. They don't know where they're going all the time. And Mickey X, for the most part, is the guy that bails them out when they're going outside the lines. When they're close to, just going off the canvas entirely and just kind of, getting ink poisoning, because when the times go rough and the looks like the painting is going off course, Mickey X is there to kind of steer them in the right direction. And today, again, he was always there when they need them. All the skirmishes, all the last-second heroics with the Tahm Kench. Even in lane, I thought he played extremely well. Best support in the world for me right now, Mickey X, number 4, for my quarterfinals top 5 players.
Yeah, this was a tough one for me. My top 3, I think, were pretty much set after the G2, obviously in the G2 series, and we'll get to that. But number 4 for me, man, I was really wavering between Mickey X and the person that I did pick. And ultimately, I guess I just went with Damwon over G2 in this particular case. And so that's why I picked Showmaker. And I think that I had a little bit more of a stats focus. Mickey X was very impressive. I think he might be top 3 or maybe even leading in assists, somewhere very high on the list in the quarterfinals. But Showmaker had the 3rd highest KDA, and he only died once. I felt like he was a very solid player throughout that entire series, won the mid lane matchups consistently against DRX. Now, to be fair, DRX, you can make comparisons on whether Damwon already had a significant advantage in the DRX.
It was matchup. It was Chovy though. He beat Chovy. You gotta give him credit for that. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. He beat the church. He went into the church and he just stole the congregation.
Vatican City is down, Arda. They defeated Vatican City and our Lord and Savior Chovy.
Exactly. And to make a music analogy, Damwon playing against DRX felt like heavy metal. It felt like
Oh
they were
yeah,
just like
yeah,
ripping
yeah.
through, and I was just headbanging the entire way, and I was like, "Let's go, Showmaker!" Dun, 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 Showmaker. Yeah, that is not a copyright strike, by the way. I just made up that song. That does not have any likeness to anything. So that's why I picked Showmaker. But Mickey X, like you said it on Twitter, and I think it's, I actually wonder, and maybe it changed a little bit with this meta, but remember when we were talking about the top 20 players and how we had this like the conversation about that there being no supports on the list?
Oh yeah, that was
like
bad.
we were sort of debating
you messed
that
up there.
Yeah, but like I think that you're right. Like maybe this, like especially with the way Mickey X played, like maybe more recognition should be placed upon the supports, and
Especially in this
I have a
meta.
little bit yeah.
Oh, in this meta where it's a lot about the roaming support in the duo with the jungler, having a bad support just equals death pretty much. If you can't have a support who can roam and make plays and read the map well when it comes to, do you take Herald? Do you fight for Herald? Do you look for Dragon? Do you play around lanes? Do you try to get extra gold if they take Herald? Like the support is so important in this meta because they're always having to pick the right choice. It's like one of those Goosebumps books, Arda. If you pick the wrong direction, your game's over. And it's a lot about knowing where to be at the right times, and the greatest supports are the ones who can make the plays and be there at the right times for the right Herald fight, for the right rotation. And I think Mickey X, has shown alongside players like Beryl, have been there at the right time for the majority of the tournament, and they've worked lock in step with their jungler, and they played very well. So yeah, for me, Mickey X, Showmaker, it's very close. We're going to talk about that semifinal a lot. That is the headline semifinal. Lots of trash talk, lots of bad blood. I cannot wait for that semifinal.
I am so with you, by the way. Like the way that you said how they should promo, they being Riot, pardon me, Riot should promo this. It's so easy to promo this matchup. Oh my god!
Get a translator, sit the two teams in front of each other, and just give them mics back and forth, and let them get out their emotions. Showmaker has been thinking about this game for over a year. G2 have been trash talking the LCK for over a year. Just put a mic between the 5 players and let them go.
Hallelujah. Let's go. We'll talk about that a lot more later on. Getting to number 3 on the list here. We're at the middle of our top 5. Who do you got?
For me, it's number 3 is Kanan from the Heavy Metal Damwon. And as you said, it was a thrashing of Piosik, your boy Piosik, in the quarterfinal. Piosik had a very good tournament, a great tournament up to that quarterfinal, but he wasn't enough to kind of even challenge Canyon. Canyon's grave is the best in the tournament. Overall, he's one of the leaders, I would say, as a World's MVP so far. I do think if Damwon makes it to the end and they do win the championship, he's more than likely going to be the MVP, either him and Deguri. But just great job by Canyon. He's had no negative games, really. Even their loss against JD Gaming, which didn't really count, because they didn't really qualify for the first seed, he still played well. So overall, Canyon's had almost a picture-perfect tournament. Number 3, he's only number 3 because the 2 players above him had, career days. Like memorable, we're going to remember this in 20 years type of days, where Canyon, another amazing day, another 10 out of 10 day, but it's not a day that we're going to remember the DRX series or his play in the DRX series a year from now or 2 years from now, unless they win the championship, where the 2 players in front of him had those career-making days.
Yeah, I had Canyon number 3 as well, exactly for the reasons you mentioned. He had the most kills in the quarterfinals. He had the second highest KDA behind Caps, and he had the highest experience differential after 10 minutes. Like, he was leading in the stats departments. I'm sure Tim at Oracle's Elixir was just very happy entering all the statistics on Canyon.
I love
going
Tim.
Into this one.
Tim's best.
Yeah, Tim's awesome. By the way, you should follow Tim on Twitter, because he gives like nice succinct game matchups on like who picked whom and what the big beats of the games were. So definitely worth a follow there for Tim. Also Canadian, so shout out to a fellow Canadian. But yeah, Canyon at number 3, and that leads us to our 1 and 2. And actually, what we should do here, Tyler, because we both have both players in our number 1 and 2. Give us your 1 and 2, and then we'll talk reasons here, because we do differ in our 1 and 2.
For my number 2, I have Hong Feng of Suning, and for number 1, I have Claps, Mr. Caps, the Danish Rocket, in my number 1 position. It's tough. They both had perfect days. They both had 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10 days. We're never going to forget the anime-esque opening of the Jin Ultimate in the opponent's base. We're never going to forget the Silas 11-0-11 game. both had moments that are going to become iconic in World lore. I went with Caps just because it's really difficult. I think overall, a lot of Suning. Again, it really just comes down to like I can't be like, oh, Suning was much more of a team effort. No, G2's win was also a lot of a team effort. It was both teams enabling Silas or Caps, and both teams enabling the Jin to do well in these situations. I guess for me, I think it's going back to I think I have a little bit more confidence in Caps that he can keep it up. I'm not saying Wang Feng is going to kind of fall down in the semifinals against Jakulov. I just think it's more sustainable, and Caps has been here before. I have more confidence putting Caps as my number one player just because I know he can replicate this. And maybe I'm a bit juiced up because this game was today and Suning's game was 2-3 days ago. If you flip the days and Wang Feng's game was today, maybe he's number one for me because it's the last thing on my mind. But for me right now, I just can't get over that mid-game team fight with Silas where he's shrunk down to 10 health. He Zonia's a spear. He comes in he steals the Ash Arrow. Like he gets a triple kill due to Mickey X gobbling up like that. Like just go look at that team fight over and over and over again. It's been the Korean has like a in-depth like version of like how that went to be. Like the Chinese reactions, the Korean reactions, the English reactions. Like that team fight is just so good. And just for me, just seeing that team fight, I can't not give Caps number one after seeing what he did mechanically in that team fight. That's it's as great as you can be in League of Legends. In a day and age where it's a lot more about a team fighting and playing as a team and macro play and not one player just snowballing an advantage like back in 2013, it felt good to see an 11-0-11 Silas just smashing heads and winning games. And that's why I have Caps number one. But really, it's a coin flip. Both players deserve a round of applause. Both players deserve to be number one.
Mm-hmm. So we have ours flipped. I have Caps at 2 and Huan Feng at 1. So I'll explain why I put Huan Feng at 1. So Caps you could argue that Caps had the better series overall for his team in the series. I'm not debating that necessarily. Caps absolutely went Super Saiyan, had one of the best games ever in at Worlds, right? We're not debating that. Statistically, they're pretty similar. They had the exact same KDA. They died exactly 4 times. They were pretty similar in kill participation. Like a lot of statistical areas, if you're looking at the numbers, they were pretty on par with each other. For me, years from now, though we may also be talking about that Caps game, that does hinge on him winning Worlds, right? Like we'll mention it in passing years from now, but if G2 don't win Worlds, it's going to be more of a footnote. That Jin ult in the base is going to be mentioned and highlighted and talked about for years and years to come. That will be in every highlight package that you will ever see in Worlds moving forward. So though it might be a little bit, maybe it's a flimsy reason to put somebody at number one for that being maybe a root reason, I do believe that because they're statistically similar and because Huan Feng did have a great series other than that moment, for me, the fact that he was also able to create a lasting highlight to that degree, for me, I believe he deserves that just by a hair. And I think that he also, we could argue, and I think it's pretty clear, he leveled up in that series more than Caps did, right? Tyler, I think you're muted. Huan Feng leveled up. Not people knew who Caps was. People knew what Caps brought to the table. People knew that Caps was one of the best players out there in League of Legends today. Now people are talking about Huan Feng. He is on the lips of many League of Legends fans because of what he did in that series. So for those reasons, I do believe that he earned that number one spot looking at the quarterfinals.
It's splitting hairs, right, Arda? It's just splitting hairs. It's so close. And I do agree with you on the point of Caps has already had such a legacy. He's been to two World Finals. If in a world where they don't win Worlds, in a world where they lose to Damwon, sure, the Silas game, this quarterfinal performance kind of gets diluted a bit. We still remember it, but it's not that kind of – it's not his ascent, right? Where we can look back at Huang Feng's career in 5 years, and if he's a top player, we're going to remember this Jin performance as his ascent. This is his ascent from a star to a superstar. I said this yesterday. A domestic star to an international superstar, and if he wins Worlds, he goes from an international superstar to a goddamn legend, Arda. And we're always going to remember that Jin performance and him inside the enemy's base if he wins Worlds. So it was splitting hairs. Both players are 10 out of 10 in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, totally. And there's a good retort in chat from Romero Jose who says, but that doesn't make Huang Feng the better player. Agreed. Nobody would say that Huang Feng is a better player than Caps, looking at their entire body of work. We are talking simply about the quarterfinal series that they participated in at Worlds 2020 and what happened in the context of that series alone. So for that reason, I feel comfortable putting Huang Feng at number 1. But yeah, it's
They're
so
both
close.
Gods. They're both had this godly series.
It's like choosing between two children, I guess. It's you just can't. But we do anyway.
Both godly performances. Bravo to both.